Perfect. And that takes us on to the next fight. It's a featherweight bout between Darrick Minner and Charles Rosa. Minner, he comes in with a 25-11 record and somehow made his UFC debut in 2020. So, that was a little mind-boggling to me.
Crazy.
How do you have like 30 plus fights coming into the UFC? But
and those are those guys, right? They've just been around. When you scroll down, like, you might finally see a guy like, oh my God, I know him.
I've seen some highlight video of him for sure. So, he did fight twice in 2020. He did lose to Grant Dawson via rear naked choke. And then he defeated TJ Laramie, I believe, by a guillotine choke in September.
Canadian boy, yeah.
Yeah, give us a little more on Mr. Minner here. Minner or Minner?
It's Minner. He had a massive win against the guy that you actually remember. It was a Dana White Contender Series, and this Canadian boy just looked so good. But I think it was a classic case of, I would call it good matchmaking. You gave a really hot kid someone who had to at least, he brought that regional experience to a guy who needed to see that, because that's what makes UFC fighters, you know what I mean? Especially in those guys that kind of work their way up to a certain level over the course of their career. Minner, I think, has a huge record for a guy that's, just hitting his 30s. So the way I see it, there's again, man, like those types of fights where you kind of want to just, what do they call those popcorn fights, right? Like you just kind of sit back and watch. Sometimes you really can't make those final calls because it's such a huge discrepancy between experience and just hot fire coming out of previous fights, and that's what Vegas seems to judge them on.
Yeah, and touching on experience, we got Charles Rosa on the other side here. He only sports a 13-4 record, and when I say only, I just mean by 17 total fights. But this is a guy who's been in the UFC since 2014, man. Like, what the hell is going on there?
It's crazy.
Yeah, that was actually pretty surprising to me. So he has gone 4-4 in the UFC. So all 4 of his losses have come in this league. But this guy doesn't really like to fight that often either. Like, once a year, max twice.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like he's the kind of guy that if you talk to fighters, like he's the kind of guy that everybody loves, everybody knows, I think he has a really good reputation amongst his peers, and he's a great fighter in all areas. When you look at even the Aguilar fight, it was just such a close fight, and we had Charles Rosa, but I thought, that fight was probably going to be a bit, less closer than it was. I think, you probably had you on the edge of your seat a little bit. So I think that's where you kind of see a guy like Rosa, right? The constant improvement and getting really good, but also being like such a good veteran of the sport. So like you kind of find him in these weird fights where, he gets a veteran where he can kind of make a name for himself, but then also has to play gatekeeper once in a while. It's how you come out of those fights that really make the next 2 or 3, when it comes to your schedule.
For sure. And, like you said, you touched on the Aguilar fight in June. That was a good win for him. Prior to that, he did lose to Bryce Mitchell in the year by unanimous decision. So, this is going to be an interesting one. Let's dive right into the line here. Who do you see being the favorite here?
I mean, you kind of touched on one of the wins, but when you look at Rosa's losses, right, it's Dennis Seaver, Yair Rodriguez, Shane Burgos, and Bryce Mitchell. Like, those are all very, very credible losses. Those are going to make you better fighters. And it was the ones that we kind of talked about, right? Playing gatekeeper to Bryce Mitchell, Burgos, like all these guys. If he won that Seaver fight, who knows where, Charlie Rosa would be as a UFC fighter right now. So I think that the TJ Laramie fight might give him a little bit too much of a bump, and I'm not going to buy into that, and I don't think Vegas is either.
Okay.
I also don't think that, if you ask me from experience and just from overall, athleticism, I think the way he caught TJ Laramie, I don't think you're catching Rosa like that personally.
No.
And so I am going to go with Rosa as the favorite, but I think I'm actually going to have to give him a very respectable line because I am going to show some respect to that experience in the regional scene. And so I'm going to go with Rosa minus 170.
Oh my God, man. What is this shit, yo? We might have to actually change this fucking game, man.
He dropped an F-bomb again. See, that's you wait for bells, I wait for F-bombs, because that's true emotion for me. That is bringing out you at the absolute max, and I'll take that all day over my guy.
No, give me my guy. Give me my guy. I need my guy here. That's another showcase showdown win He's a
Wow.
minus 175 favorite within 5
Jeez,
basis
bro.
points.
How am I?
Yes, yeah.
Wow. I'm basically.
I don't know what you're doing
you
here,
forced me
man.
to think like Vegas now, and now that's basically what I'm doing. Wow.
So, let me ask you, at that minus 170 line, do you see any value there?
Yes, I do. I do. I think from an MMA perspective, I 100% do, because on paper, even the guys that Rosa has lost to, think about the people that they've gone on to fight after. Do you know what I mean? Like, these are all guys who could have been in title contention. Bryce Mitchell is on his way to title contention. Shane Burgos had a beautiful fight against I might have to look this one up. Emmett. No, it's Josh Emmett. I don't need to look it up. Josh Emmett. And Josh Emmett fought on a torn ACL.
Wow.
And knocked him out, bro. You kidding me right now? So, like, those are the guys that Rosa's losing to, Like, Emmett should have fought for a title if he'd stayed healthy. You know what I mean? Like, the stuff we see from some of these guys, to me, it's just like, if you play that snakes and ladders, if you will, I think Rosa's where he belongs. I think he deserves to be even maybe a bit more of a favorite, in my personal opinion. But I think the respect there for what he did against TJ Laramie and the regional scene experience, like, people are going to see that record and be like, you know what? Like, I don't understand why he's this low. But again, like, the way he locked up that guillotine, that's experience. Like, TJ Laramie had zero chance of getting out of there. You know what I mean? Like, this man pulled guard so quickly and just had his arm ready. He's like, nah, this is in. And I just went to the ground and had it locked. It was beautiful. And I just think that Rosa is not going to have it look that easy. I just can't. Yeah. And that's where I think right now that line kind of suggests that he might be able to lose that way. And I just don't see it, man. Like, those are very credible losses on his record. And it seems like the line is where it should actually be. So,
once we do get the secondary markets, we can kind of look at maybe a decision victory here, or, it doesn't seem like either of these guys really get finished that often. So,
and if Minner comes out with a massive finish, man, think about that. Woo! That's a guy who just locks up 2 big finishes to start his UFC career after losing to Herbert Burns on the Dana White Contender Series. Like, come on now. Like, that's huge. That's big for him.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And we could see some stupendous numbers on that for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that one. We'll be sure to lock something in a little closer to the fight.
If we want to touch it, but that could be one of those.
Yeah, ones, might just be a popcorn fight here.
Because this fight is at featherweight, and I mean, let's be real. One guy is used to fighting a little bit larger, and so it's going to be interesting, I think.
Safe to say, we are pumped for this one. UFC Vegas 19 takes place next Saturday, headlined by our boy, the Black Beast, taking on Curtis Blaydes. We got a bunch of beauty heavyweight fights on that card, so I'm super pumped for it. That wraps it up today. If you haven't already done so, smash that like button, hit that bell button, give us that subscribe, the follow. All our Instagram, Twitter is all there. Any questions, comments you guys have, just send them our way. Anything else, Siraj?
I mean, just be ready. Like, we keep pumping this fight up, but be ready for a 5-round wrestling match where Curtis Blaydes isn't able to finish this man, and Derrick Lewis isn't able to get off his back after 3 rounds, and you're just watching a guy get taken down for 5 rounds. So just be ready for that as well.
Nice little disclaimer there, my man. Always a pleasure, dude. Take care.
You too, my guy. Take care.